Let me tell you about the moment Keisha Williams realized the homeless woman she'd been feeding every morning for 8 months wasn't homeless at all. She was hiding. And the man who'd been hunting her had just pulled up outside Keisha's apartment in a black sedan with 3 other men in suits. Big mistake. Not Giannis's mistake. Keisha's. Because when you show up every single day for someone the world has forgotten, you don't just save their life, you become a witness. And witnesses are dangerous to men who built empires on making people disappear. You're about to see how one 24-year-old woman with barely enough money to feed herself accidentally dismantled a mafia boss's 30-year cover-up. Not with a gun, not with the law, with a thermos of coffee and a peanut butter sandwich. 6:10 a.m. That's when Keisha's alarm went off every single morning. Not 6, not 6:15, 6:10. Because by 6:18, she needed to be standing outside the shuttered laundromat on Clayton Avenue with a brown paper bag in one hand and a thermos in the other. By 6:21, she needed to be sitting on the curb next to Giannis Doyle. Keisha lived in a 4th-floor walk-up above a closed laundromat, the kind of apartment where the shower only worked if you kicked the pipes first and the kitchen was just a hot plate on a folding table. Rent was $680 a month. She was always 2 weeks behind. She worked early shifts at a neighborhood health clinic, checking in patients, filing insurance forms, answering phones that never stopped ringing. Then she'd take 2 buses across town to clean office buildings downtown until midnight. 24 years old, 2 jobs, $73 in her checking account on a good week. And every morning, without fail, she stopped at Sal's Corner Bakery, bought a breakfast sandwich and coffee, and walked 2 blocks to where Giannis Doyle slept beneath a bus shelter. Most people crossed the street to avoid her. Keisha had done the same thing for 3 weeks before she stopped. Janice was in her late 60s. White, gray hair chopped short like she'd done it herself with kitchen scissors, wearing a men's overcoat that swallowed her small frame. Her hands shook when she held the thermos, but her eyes were sharp, calculating, like she was always doing math nobody else could see. They didn't talk much at first. Keisha would hand over the food, Janice would nod. That was it. But after 2 months, Janice started insisting Keisha sit. Just for a minute. People don't sit anymore, Janice would say, not looking at her. They pass through, like ghosts. Keisha thought Janice was lonely. She didn't know Janice was hiding. Didn't know that 30 years ago, Janice Doyle had been Janice Hubbard, wife of Marlon Hubbard, the man who controlled half the ports on the East Coast, the man whose name made union bosses go quiet, the man who'd built a financial empire on blood, loyalty, and silence. Didn't know that Janice had been his architect, the one who built the shell companies, the one who laundered the money, the one who knew where every body was buried. And when Janice tried to leave, Marlon didn't kill her. He erased her, froze her accounts, destroyed her identity, made sure no one would hire her, help her, or even remember her name. He let her disappear because disappearing was worse than dying. For 30 years, it worked. Until one morning, a 24-year-old clinic worker with a thermos of coffee refused to walk past her, and Marlon Hubbard's surveillance network caught it on camera. This channel tells stories about quiet strength, delayed justice, and what happens when powerful people underestimate silence. If that's your kind of story, subscribe. To understand how a peanut butter sandwich brought down a mafia empire, you need to understand 3 things. Who Janice Doyle used to be, who Marlon Hubbard still was, and why Keisha Williams, broke, exhausted, invisible to everyone who mattered, was the one person Marlon couldn't predict. Because powerful men don't fear guns or laws. They fear the one thing they've spent decades eliminating, witnesses who refuse to look away. And Keisha? She showed up every single morning. The first time Janice predicted something, Keisha thought it was luck. It was a Wednesday morning in mid-May. Keisha had been complaining about work, how the clinic administrator had been acting strange, how there were closed-door meetings she wasn't allowed in, how the billing department kept requesting files from years back. "Sounds like an audit," Janice said, not looking up from her coffee. Keisha paused mid-bite. "What?" "Paper audits aren't really dangerous." Janice's voice was calm, almost distant. "It's when they start asking why the numbers don't move. That's when someone gets fired." Keisha laughed nervously. "You think they're auditing us?" "I think someone already knows the answer. They're just building the file." Janice finally looked at her, those sharp eyes. "Your supervisor, the one who schedules the supply orders?" "Mrs. Chen? She's been there for 15 years. "Exactly." Janice took another sip, long enough to get comfortable. Keisha wanted to argue, wanted to say Janice was paranoid, but something about the certainty in her voice made Keisha's stomach tighten. That afternoon, Mrs. Chen was escorted out by 2 men in suits. Embezzlement, supply contract kickbacks, 3 years' worth. The clinic manager made the announcement at 4 p.m., his voice shaking. Mrs. Chen had been skimming funds through fraudulent vendor invoices, exactly the kind of thing that shows up when numbers don't move the way they should. Keisha stood in the break room, staring at the empty chair where Mrs. Chen used to eat lunch. How did Janice know? The second time, Keisha couldn't dismiss it. 2 weeks later, they were sitting together when Janice glanced at a newspaper someone had left on the bench. The headline was about a local development deal, luxury condos going up on the east side. "That project won't break ground," Janice said flatly. "Why not? They've already got funding." "They've got promises, not the same thing." Janice folded the paper carefully. When shell companies fund shell companies, someone always pulls the thread, usually the FBI. "You sound like you've seen this before." "I have." Janice's expression didn't change. Boardrooms full of men in $1,000 suits, shaking hands over contracts nobody actually reads. They think complexity equals invisibility. She looked at Keisha then, really looked. It doesn't. 3 days later, the development deal collapsed. Federal investigation into money laundering. 2 executives arrested. Keisha found the newspaper article on her phone during her lunch break. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. That evening, she didn't wait for morning. She went to the bus stop after her cleaning shift, near midnight. Janice was awake. She always was. "How did you know?" Keisha demanded. Janice didn't pretend not to understand. Pattern recognition. You see enough collapses, you learn what they look like before they happen. "That's not an answer." "It's the only one I can give you." Keisha sat down hard on the bench. "Who are you?" "Someone who used to matter." Janice's voice was soft now, sad. "A long time ago." "To who?" "To people who don't forgive mistakes." Silence settled between them. The city hummed around them, distant sirens, late-night buses, the hiss of steam from a manhole cover. Finally, Janice spoke again. "Your routine, Keisha. Coming here every morning, same time, same path. It's dangerous." "Dangerous?" Keisha almost laughed. "It's breakfast." "Routines make you visible. Visible makes you vulnerable." "To who?" Janice didn't answer. Keisha felt anger rising in her chest. "This routine is all I have. Work, bus, sleep, repeat. If I can't do one good thing..." "I'm not saying stop." Janice's hand found Keisha's wrist. Her grip was surprisingly strong. "I'm saying be careful. Some people notice patterns, and when they do..." She didn't finish. Didn't need to. The weight in Keisha's pocket, that key to locker 317, suddenly felt heavier. Janice released her wrist, looked away. When she spoke again, her voice was barely above a whisper. "If I disappeared, would you look for me?" Keisha's breath caught. "What? Would you?" Janice turned back, her eyes glistening in the streetlight. Or would you go back to your life and forget this ever happened? Keisha should have said no, should have protected herself, should have recognized the danger in that question. Instead, she heard herself say, "Yes, I would." Janice nodded slowly, like that was exactly what she'd been afraid of. "Then I'm sorry," she whispered. "For what?" But Janice had already turned away. And somewhere across the city, Marlon Hubbard finished reviewing the surveillance footage for the third time. The young woman came every morning, like clockwork. Perfect. Monday morning, 6:15 a.m. The bus shelter was empty. Keisha stood there with the thermos in one hand, sandwich wrapped in foil in the other, staring at the spot where Janice always slept. No cardboard, no blanket, no trash bag of belongings, just concrete and the faint oil stain that had been there for months. Keisha waited. Her bus came and went, then the next one. By the time she finally climbed aboard the third bus, she was 20 minutes late for work, and her chest felt hollow. Tuesday, empty. Wednesday, nothing. By Thursday, the absence had teeth. Keisha couldn't focus at the clinic. She kept glancing at the clock, counting hours until she could go back and check again. Dr. Akoffer had to call her name twice during a patient intake. "Miss Williams? The insurance card." "Sorry, yes, sorry." That evening, after her cleaning shift, Keisha didn't go home. She took 2 buses across town to the Mercy Street shelter, even though her feet were screaming and she had an exam the next morning she hadn't studied for. The shelter smelled like industrial cleaner and desperation. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. A woman at the intake desk looked up, already exhausted at 11 p.m. "Name?" she asked flatly. "I'm looking for someone. Janice Doyle, older white woman, late 60s, usually stays near the Clayton and 5th bus stop. We don't track people who don't check in here. Can you just look, please?" The woman sighed, typed slowly, shook her head. "No one by that name in our system." "What about the hospitals?" "Privacy laws. You family?" Keisha hesitated. "I'm a friend." "Then no." The woman's expression softened slightly. "Look, honey, people move around. She probably found another spot. They always do." But Janice wasn't they. Janice was someone who predicted federal investigations, someone who talked about boardrooms and shell companies, someone who'd given Keisha a key and warned her about routines, someone who'd asked if Keisha would look for her. And now she was gone. Friday night, Keisha called 3 hospitals from her apartment floor, her phone balanced on her knee, cold pizza from 4 days ago sitting untouched beside her. St. Vincent's. Without a patient ID or family connection, we can't release information. County General? No one by that name admitted in the past week. Mercy Heights? Ma'am, we have privacy regulations. She hung up before they finished. Keisha stared at the key sitting on her kitchen counter. Locker 317, bus terminal on 8th Street. If I disappear, open it. What if Janice hadn't disappeared? What if she'd been disappeared? The thought made Keisha's hand shake. She pressed her palms against her thighs, trying to steady her breathing. Why did she care this much? She barely knew Janice. 8 weeks of 10-minute conversations didn't make them family, didn't obligate her to anything. But that question, would you look for me, wouldn't let go. And underneath the worry, something darker was growing. Fear. What if her kindness had pulled her into something she couldn't understand? What if someone was watching? What if that black sedan from her nightmares was real? What if helping Janice was the biggest mistake of her life? Saturday morning, Keisha went back to the bus stop anyway. She left a paper bag there, sandwich, banana, a note inside. Hope you're okay, Kay. The bag sat there all day. She checked on her way to work, on her way home. Sunday, it was still there, soaked through from rain. Monday morning she went again, told herself it would be the last time. The bus shelter was empty. Keisha's heart sank. She turned to leave and froze. Janice was there, sitting on the bench, not the ground, wearing different clothes, cleaner, newer. Her hair was washed, but her face... A bruise bloomed purple-yellow across her left cheekbone. Her lip was split, and her hands, those hands that used to shake from cold, were trembling for an entirely different reason. Their eyes met. Janice looked terrified. Not of the street, not of homelessness, of something, someone much worse. Janice! Janice grabbed Keisha's wrist. Her grip was desperate, painful. "If anyone asks about me," she whispered, her voice raw, "you don't know my last name. You don't know where I came from. You don't know anything." "What happened? Where were you?" "Promise me." "Janice." "Promise me." Keisha's throat closed. She nodded. Janice released her wrist, pressed something into her palm. Another key. Different from the first.
Locker 428, same terminal. Janice's voice cracked. "If I disappear again, if they come for me, who's coming?" But Janice just closed Keisha's fingers around the key and whispered two words that would haunt Keisha for months. "He's looking." Keisha didn't go to work that Monday. She sat on her apartment floor, back against the radiator, staring at two keys on the linoleum. Locker 317, locker 428. Her phone buzzed. The clinic. Third call in an hour. She let it ring. Outside, a black sedan idled across the street. Same one from 3 days ago. Windows tinted dark enough to hide faces, but not intent. They wanted her to see them. Keisha's hands wouldn't stop shaking. Across town, in an office where the mahogany desk cost more than Keisha made in a year, Marlon Hubbard watched the live feed on his tablet. The girl's apartment, 4th floor, single window facing the street. She hadn't left in 6 hours. "She's scared," said Victor, his head of security, standing behind him. "That's good. Scared people make mistakes." Marlon didn't look up. Scared people also run or talk. "She's nobody. A clinic worker with 2 jobs and negative credit. Who's gonna listen?" Janice listened. Marlon's finger traced the edge of the tablet. "For 8 months, someone listened to my wife." "Ex-wife," Victor corrected quietly. The look Marlon gave him could have stripped paint. Victor cleared his throat. "What do you want me to do?" "Nothing yet." Marlon set down the tablet. "Let her feel it first. The weight, the isolation. Let her understand that whatever she thinks she knows, no one will believe her." He stood, buttoning his suit jacket. Charcoal gray, Italian cut, the kind of armor that announced wealth and untouchability. Then we remind her what happens to witnesses. Tuesday morning, 6:10 a.m. Keisha went to the bus stop. She had to. The not knowing would kill her faster than whatever was coming. Janice was there. Same bench, same bruised face, but something had shifted in her posture, a resignation that made Keisha's stomach drop. "You came back," Janice said, not surprised, disappointed. "I told you to. I told you to forget me." Keisha sat anyway, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. "Who is he?" Janice's laugh was bitter, broken. "The man who built an empire on making people disappear. The man I helped build it." "Your husband." "Ex-husband." Janice spat the word like poison. "Marlon doesn't do divorce. He does erasure." She turned to face Keisha fully. The bruise looked worse in daylight, deliberate, calculated, a message written in violence. "For 30 years, I've been invisible. No bank accounts, no ID, no proof I ever existed." Her voice cracked. "And it worked. Until you." Keisha felt the accusation like a slap. "I didn't. You did." Janice gripped her wrist again, softer this time.
desperate. You showed up every single day. Same time, same place, same kindness, and his cameras caught it all. Cameras? He has eyes everywhere. Traffic lights, ATMs, security feeds. If you're close to me, you're visible. And if you're visible... She didn't finish. Didn't need to. Keisha pulled her hand back. Then I'll stop. I'll stay away. It's too late. Janice's eyes glistened. He doesn't just eliminate threats. He makes examples of them so no one else gets brave. The black sedan rolled past. Slow. Deliberate. Both women watched it disappear around the corner. Those keys, Janice whispered, they're not just evidence. They're insurance. 30 years of documents, shell companies, wire transfers, bodies, everything. Why give them to me? Because if I disappear, someone needs to know the truth. She gripped Keisha's hand. And because you're the only person in 3 decades who saw me as human. Tears cut tracks down Janice's bruised face. He's going to come for you, Keisha. Not today, not tomorrow, but soon. And when he does, you need to decide. Her voice dropped to barely a whisper. Are you a witness or a ghost? The black sedan circled back, parked across the street, watching. Janice stood, picked up her bag, and before she walked away, she leaned close to Keisha's ear. He's looking again. The office had no photographs, no awards on the walls, no family portraits, no evidence that Marlon Hubbard was anything other than what the brass nameplate on his desk claimed, CEO, Hubbard Maritime Solutions. The view told a different story. 43rd floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the harbor. Cargo ships moved like chess pieces below, each one carrying something legitimate enough to pass inspection, profitable enough to justify the bribes. Marlon stood at the glass, hands clasped behind his back, watching a container ship dock at Pier 7. His pier, his product, his silence. Victor entered without knocking, knew better than to wait for permission. The footage is confirmed, he said. 3 months of daily contact, same location, same time. Marlon didn't turn. Show me. The tablet appeared beside him. Victor's hand was steady. 30 years of service taught you not to show fear, even when delivering bad news. The video played in silence. A young black woman, early 20s, clinic scrubs under a winter coat too thin for the weather. She carried a paper bag and a thermos. She sat next to a homeless woman at a bus stop. They didn't speak much, just sat, shared coffee. The homeless woman's face was mostly hidden by the angle, but Marlon didn't need to see it clearly. He knew that posture, that careful way of holding a cup, that habit of scanning the street before relaxing. 30 years, and he still recognized his wife. Ex-wife. The word felt inadequate. Divorce implied an ending. What they'd had was more permanent than marriage. Partnership. Janice had been brilliant, not in the way men usually meant when they called women brilliant, not pretty brilliant or charming brilliant, actually brilliant. She'd designed the first shell company structure when she was 26, turned his father's violent empire into something that looked legitimate on paper, made the blood money clean enough to buy politicians. They'd built it together, him in the shadows, her in the spreadsheets. And when she'd tried to leave, when she'd threatened to talk, he'd done what the empire required. He'd erased her. Not killed. Killing created investigations. He'd erased her instead, frozen every account, destroyed every record, made sure no employer would touch her, no shelter would keep her, no friend would claim her. He'd turned her into a ghost, and ghosts didn't come back. Except this one had. For 30 years she'd survived, stayed invisible, stayed silent, until some girl with a thermos decided to care. Who is she? Marlon asked.
Victor consulted his phone. Keisha Williams, 24, works at Clayton Street Health Clinic. Second job cleaning offices downtown. No criminal record, no family in the area, student loans, medical debt, barely making rent. Political affiliations? None. Doesn't even vote regularly. Connections, friends, anyone who'd notice if she disappeared? Victor hesitated. No one significant. Marlon finally turned from the window. His expression hadn't changed. Calm, measured, the face of a man who'd learned decades ago that emotion was weakness. Why? Victor blinked. Sir? Why does she care? Marlon moved to his desk, sat, folded his hands. Janice has nothing, offers nothing. This girl gains nothing from helping her, so why risk it? Some people are just kind. The word sounded foreign in that office. Marlon studied the frozen image on the tablet, the girl's face, the way she sat close to Janice without crowding her, the thermos extended like an offering. Kindness. He'd eliminated men for less dangerous qualities than kindness. She's a witness, Marlon said quietly. Janice wouldn't maintain contact unless she had a reason, which means she's told this girl something. We could bring them both in, question them. No. Victor waited. Marlon's finger traced the edge of the desk. Mahogany. Imported. Purchased with money Janice had laundered through a Panamanian holding company in 1997. Everything in this office existed because of her. If Janice wanted to run, she would have. If she wanted to talk, she would have. He looked up. She's planning something, and this girl is part of it. Then we eliminate the girl, send Janice a message. Messages require recipients. Marlon's smile was thin, precise. And I want to know what Janice has been doing for 30 years before I remind her why silence kept her alive. He stood, buttoned his jacket. Find the girl, follow her, document everything, everyone she talks to, everywhere she goes. Victor nodded. Marlon looked back at the harbor, the ships, the empire he'd built on disappeared people and unasked questions. And Victor? Sir? Make sure she knows we're watching. The bus terminal on 8th Street smelled like diesel and decades-old coffee. Keisha stood in front of locker 317, key in hand, at 2:47 a.m. on a Wednesday. The graveyard shift, when security was one bored guard watching football on his phone and the only other people were insomniacs and the displaced. When no one would remember her face. She'd taken 3 buses to get here, paid cash, left her phone at home on her kitchen counter, still plugged in, still pinging the cell tower near her apartment. Janice's paranoia was contagious. The key slid in, turned. The locker door swung open. Inside, a canvas bag, military surplus, worn at the edges. Keisha pulled it out, set it on the bench bolted to the floor, unzipped it. The first thing she saw was a photograph, black and white, dated 1993 in faded ink on the back. A woman in her 30s, sharp suit, sharper eyes, standing next to a man in an expensive overcoat. His hand rested on her shoulder, possessive, proud. The woman was smiling. Keisha recognized those eyes. Janice, 30 years younger, confident, powerful. Alive in a way the woman at the bus stop had never been. Beneath the photo, ledgers, 12 of them, composition notebooks with dates written on the spines in meticulous handwriting. 1992, 2004. Keisha opened one at random. March 15th, 1997. Wire transfer, $2.3 million. Origin, Coastal Freight Limited, Cayman Islands. Destination, Harbor Solutions LLC, Delaware. Purpose, container lease payments. Actual purpose, payment for customs clearance, Port of Newark. Customs official, Deputy Director R. Sullivan. Names, dates, amounts. Shell companies nested inside shell companies like Russian dolls. And in the margins, in that same precise handwriting, bodies. Not metaphorical, literal.
March 22, 1997. Union Rep Marcus Chen, disposed. Pier 9 Foundation. June 8, 1998. Accountant David Reeves, drowned, ruled accidental. Keisha's hands trembled. She flipped pages, saw more names, more dates, more bodies poured into concrete, dropped into water, cremated and scattered. 30 years of documentation. Evidence of murders, money laundering, bribery, racketeering. An empire built on silence, documented by the woman who designed it. At the bottom of the bag, a manila envelope, unsealed. Written on the front in black marker, "For when he comes." Inside, a single sheet of paper, handwritten, recent. Keisha, if you're reading this, I'm either dead or disappeared. These ledgers are copies. The originals are somewhere safe, somewhere even Marlon can't reach. You have 3 choices.
1. Put this back. Walk away. Forget you ever knew me. 2. Take this to the FBI. They'll protect you. Maybe. 3. Do nothing and wait for him to find you. He's already looking. The black sedan, the man at the coffee shop, the gas company van that's been parked on your street for 2 days. Marlon doesn't forgive witnesses. I'm sorry I made you one. Jay. Keisha read it 3 times. The gas company van. She'd seen it, assumed it was routine maintenance. The man at the coffee shop. She'd noticed him twice, thought nothing of it. The black sedan. He's already looking. Her chest felt tight. The terminal's fluorescent lights suddenly seemed too bright, too exposing. She looked around. The security guard was still on his phone. A woman slept across 3 plastic chairs. A teenage kid scrolled through his phone near the ticket counter. No one suspicious. No one watching. Keisha pulled out her phone, the burner she'd bought yesterday with cash at a convenience store 3 neighborhoods away. She photographed every page, every ledger, every name, every body. 43 minutes of photographing evidence that could dismantle an empire or get her killed. Probably both. She zipped the bag, put it back in the locker, locked it, pocketed the key, turned to leave, and froze. A man stood near the vending machines, 30s, athletic build, dark jacket, hands in his pockets. He wasn't looking at his phone, wasn't waiting for a bus, was watching her. Their eyes met for half a second. He didn't look away, didn't pretend he'd been doing something else, just watched. Keisha's throat closed. She walked toward the exit, forced herself not to run. Behind her, footsteps echoed on tile, following. The footsteps stopped when Keisha reached the exit. She didn't look back, pushed through the glass doors into the pre-dawn cold, walked 3 blocks before she let herself breathe. Her phone buzzed, the burner. Unknown number. She answered without thinking. Keisha Williams? The voice was calm, educated, the kind of voice that belonged in boardrooms. We should talk. She hung up. It rang again immediately. This time she didn't answer, just kept walking, faster now. The phone buzzed with a text. Bus stop, Clayton and 5th, 6:20 a.m. Come alone or I visit your apartment. No signature needed. 6:18 a.m. Keisha stood half a block away, watching the bus shelter. Janice sat on the bench, same spot, same posture. But she wasn't alone. A man stood beside her, charcoal suit, no overcoat despite the cold, silver hair cut precisely. He didn't touch Janice, didn't threaten her, didn't need to. His presence was the threat. Keisha's legs wouldn't move. Every instinct screamed to run, but Janice's eyes found hers across the distance. Please. And Keisha's feet carried her forward. Marlon Hubbard turned as she approached. His smile was surgical. Ms. Williams, thank you for coming. Up close, he looked like every powerful man Keisha had ever seen on the news. Expensive watch, manicured hands, the kind of face that aged into authority instead of obsolescence. Leave her alone, Keisha said. Her voice shook. I'm not touching her. Marlon gestured at the space between them. See? Perfectly civil. Keisha, go, Janice whispered. Please. 30 years, Marlon spoke over her. 30 years my wife has been playing ghost, and in 8 months you've undone everything. Ex-wife, Janice said quietly. Marlon's jaw tightened. Legal distinctions are for people with identities. You don't exist, Janice, remember? That was the arrangement. The arrangement was you'd let me disappear. And you did disappear. He took a step closer to her. Until you started talking. I didn't. Routines, Janice. You taught me that. Patterns reveal intent. His voice dropped. What did you tell her? Nothing. Then why does she keep showing up? Silence. Keisha stepped between them. Her hands were shaking, but her voice steadied. She didn't tell me anything. I gave her food. That's it. Marlon studied her. You're lying. I'm not. You went to locker 317 at 2:47 this morning, spent 43 minutes photographing documents that don't belong to you. Then you walked out with evidence of 32 murders. Keisha's blood turned to ice. How? I own the terminal. Marlon's smile widened. Security company, maintenance contract. Every camera feeds directly to my servers. I've been watching that locker for 3 decades, waiting for Janice to make a mistake. He turned back to Janice. You finally did. She has nothing to do with this, Janice said, standing now. You want the ledgers? Take them, but leave her alone. The ledgers are mine. You wrote them in my home, documenting my business. His voice rose for the first time. You built the system that made me untouchable. You don't get to burn it down because you grew a conscience. I built the system that made us monsters. You were never the monster, Janice. You were the architect. I was just the client. He stepped closer, inches away now. And architects don't get to demolish their own buildings. Then arrest me, Janice's voice cracked. Turn me in, but I won't disappear again. I won't. Arrest you? Marlon laughed, actually laughed. With what evidence? Your name isn't in any database. You have no social security number, no fingerprints on file. Legally, you don't exist, which means legally you can't testify. He looked at Keisha. But she can. The weight of it hit like a train. Which is why, Marlon continued, his voice dropping back to that boardroom calm, those ledgers, inadmissible, written by a woman with no legal identity, corroborated by no one, copied illegally from private property. He buttoned his jacket, and even if they weren't, do you know how many people would have to fall for me to face consequences? Judges, prosecutors, police chiefs, port authorities. He smiled. I've been paying them for 40 years. They're not going to stop now. Someone will listen, Keisha said. No one who matters. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. Janice's face went white. Keisha, what did you... I called them. Keisha's hand shook as she held up her phone. Before I came here, told them there was a disturbance, gave them this location. Marlon didn't move, didn't panic. He just smiled wider. Perfect. The sirens grew louder, 2 blocks away now, and Marlon Hubbard stood there, hands in his pockets, watching them approach like a man waiting for friends. The squad car pulled up to the curb. 2 officers stepped out, mid-40s, bored expressions, the kind of cops who'd responded to 1,000 bullshit calls and expected 1,000 more. Someone called about a disturbance? The taller one looked between Marlon, Janice, and Keisha like he was already filling out the paperwork in his head. Marlon extended his hand. Officers, Marlon Hubbard. There's been a misunderstanding. He's been threatening us, Keisha said. The officer's eyes shifted to her. Threatening how? Verbally. Her voice caught. He admitted to covering up murders, bribing officials.
Ma'am, slow down. The officer pulled out a notepad. You're saying this man threatened you? I'm saying he confessed to multiple felonies. Marlon's laugh was smooth, practiced. Officer, I think you'll find Miss Williams is confused. I came here to check on my ex-wife who's been living on the streets. I'm concerned for her welfare. Is that true? The second officer looked at Janice. You know this man? Janice's mouth opened, closed. She has no identification, Marlon said quietly. No fixed address. I've been trying to get her into treatment for years. Sometimes she makes accusations. The lie was perfect, delivered with just enough concern, just enough sadness. Keisha saw the officer's expression shift, saw them categorize Janice, homeless, mentally ill, unreliable. Wait, Keisha said. I have evidence, photographs, documents, everything. Photographs of what? The first officer asked. Financial records, shell companies. He runs a criminal organization. Miss Williams, Marlon's voice was gentle, condescending. I run a maritime logistics company. We have a website, a board of directors. We pay taxes. He turned to the officers. I think she's been spending time with my ex-wife and has developed some concerning beliefs. I'm happy to provide my attorney's contact information if there are questions about my business. The officers exchanged a look. Keisha felt the ground shifting beneath her, felt how easy it would be for them to dismiss her. Young, black, poor, claiming a wealthy white businessman confessed to murder in a bus shelter at dawn? Who would believe that? The documents, Keisha said desperately. I sent them already, to journalists, to the FBI, to... You sent stolen private documents? The officer's tone changed. Ma'am, that could be a crime. They're evidence. Of what? Marlon spread his hands. Officer, I don't know what she photographed, but if she broke into property I own.
Locker 317, Keisha said. At the 8th Street terminal, your security footage shows me there, but it also shows your people following me, watching me, for weeks. Marlon's smile faltered, just for a second. Why would your security people be watching her? The second officer asked. I don't... Marlon stopped, recalculated. We monitor high traffic areas. It's standard protocol. For weeks? If she was acting suspiciously, near a locker containing evidence of crimes you claim don't exist? The air changed. Marlon's jaw tightened. I want my attorney. Nobody's arresting you, the first officer said slowly, but maybe we should all go to the station, sort this out properly. Am I being detained? Should you be? Silence. Then Keisha's burner phone buzzed. Text message, unknown number. We have the files. Financial Crimes Task Force, federal warrant being drafted. Agent Morrison. She showed the screen to the officers. The taller one read it, looked at Marlon. Sir, I think you should come with us. I don't... Voluntarily, the officer said. For now. The arrest came 4 days later. Not at dawn, not with SWAT teams or helicopters. At 2 p.m. on a Thursday, outside Hubbard Maritime Solutions headquarters downtown. Cameras everywhere. Federal agents, unmarked cars, suits and badges and paperwork that couldn't be bought or buried. Marlon Hubbard walked out in handcuffs. No perp walk, no shouting. Just a man in an expensive suit being guided into a sedan while journalists shouted questions he didn't answer. Inside the building, investigators seized 40 years of records. Across the city, warrants executed simultaneously. Homes, offices, storage facilities. 23 people arrested in coordinated raids. Frozen assets, $847 million. Pending indictments, racketeering, money laundering, bribery, conspiracy to commit murder. The empire didn't collapse. It was dismantled, systematically, by people who knew exactly where to look because someone had shown them the blueprints. Protective custody was a hotel room in New Jersey with 2 marshals outside the door. Janice sat by the window, staring at traffic that wasn't watching her back. Keisha visited on Saturday, brought coffee in a thermos. They sat in silence for a long time. "You didn't save me," Janice finally said. "You reminded me I was worth saving." Keisha's throat tightened. "I just brought breakfast."
No. Janice turned to face her.
"You showed up. Every day. When the world said I didn't matter. When I'd accepted I didn't matter." She reached across the table, squeezed Keisha's hand. "You made me visible again." Outside, somewhere in the city, the case was building. Evidence mounting, witnesses coming forward. An empire built on silence, finally forced to answer, because one person refused to look away. 6 months later, Marlon Hubbard was sentenced to 42 years in federal prison. No cameras in the courtroom, no dramatic outburst, just a man in an orange jumpsuit listening to a judge read numbers that added up to the rest of his life. Racketeering, money laundering, conspiracy to commit murder. 23 co-defendants took plea deals, 11 went to trial, all convicted. The prosecution's case rested on financial records, surveillance footage, and testimony from a witness identified only as Jane Doe, a woman with no legal name, no social security number, no provable identity. But her ledgers were meticulous, and the FBI's forensic accountants confirmed every transaction. Janice testified from behind a screen, her voice steady, clinical. She described shell companies the way an architect describes blueprints, with precision, without emotion. When it was over, the marshals moved her again, somewhere new, somewhere Keisha wasn't told. They said goodbye in a hotel lobby in Camden. No tears, no promises to stay in touch, just Janice's hand on Keisha's shoulder and 4 words. "You showed up consistently." Then she was gone. Keisha quit her cleaning job in September. The scholarship fund, established anonymously by 3 journalists who'd broken the Hubbard story, covered her tuition and rent for 2 years, enough to finish her degree, enough to stop working midnight shifts. She still worked at the clinic, still took the same bus route, still woke up at 6:10 a.m. Some habits were harder to break than others. On a cold morning in November, she walked past the bus stop at Clayton and 5th. The bench was empty. Someone had painted over the graffiti. The city had replaced the broken streetlight. Nothing marked what had happened there. No plaque, no memorial, no evidence that this corner had been the beginning of something that ended a 40-year empire. Keisha sat down anyway. She didn't have breakfast to share, didn't have anyone to wait for. She just sat. A woman passed by, older, white, pulling a shopping cart. She glanced at Keisha, kept walking. 3 weeks ago, Keisha would have looked away. Today, she nodded. The woman paused, nodded back, kept moving. Small moments, quiet acknowledgments, the kind of interactions invisible people traded like currency when the world insisted they didn't exist. Keisha stayed on that bench for 7 minutes. Then she stood, adjusted her bag, walked toward the bus that would take her to work. Behind her, the shelter stood empty. But somewhere in the city, someone else was deciding whether to walk past or sit down, whether to see or ignore, whether showing up mattered. Marlon Hubbard had built an empire on making people disappear. Janice had survived by becoming invisible. And Keisha? She'd dismantled everything by refusing to look away. The bus stop is still there. People pass it every day without stopping. But routines have a way of changing the world when no one's watching. Because empires don't fall to declarations of war. They fall to the quiet, relentless accumulation of small acts witnessed by someone who refuses to forget. This channel is for people who understand that real power doesn't announce itself. Subscribe if that resonates.